verse says, a faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses. So what is the senses? Eyes, ears, nose, skin, so the mind, soul structure, mind, intelligence, ego. So if we can control these things, and it's not that hard, it's just we just have to chant Hare Krishna, eat prasadam, and associate with devotees, and sankirtan, preach. That way you can control the senses by this very simple process of Krishna consciousness. And above all, one must eat prasadam on a regular basis every day. In other words, you should only eat prasadam. So, therefore, it says that such knowledge in Krishna consciousness can be achieved by a faithful person who believes firmly in Krishna. One is called a faithful man who thinks that simply by acting in Krishna consciousness, he can attain the highest perfection. Yeah, you don't have to do anything else. Just be very, let's say, faithful in practicing Krishna consciousness, and one can achieve the highest perfection of spiritual life. This faith is attained by the discharge of devotional service and by chanting Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
which cleanses one part of all material dirt. Now, if you have, a body and you haven't bathed for a couple of days, so what do? I go to the store and buy some soap, and you come back and take a bath and use the soap. So that's the soap for the body. What is the soap for the mind? That's something else. They don't sell that soap in the supermarket. There's soap for the mind in the supermarket. The soap for the mind is chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
and chanting regularly every day. This is the panacea. Panacea means it is the medicine that solves all problems, all sicknesses. So the panacea is actually chanting Hare Krishna. It'll solve all your problems of life and gives you peace of mind, and also, and the most important, control of the senses. So we have eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, and then we have the mind and the intelligence. So the control is very important to chant Hare Krishna every day, and it's all very important to hear lectures about Krishna, and it's very important to associate with devotees. So if you do associate with devotees, then you will chant Hare Krishna, and you will hear about Krishna. So the number one thing we should do is always associate with devotees and avoid the association of non-devotees. This is highly recommended by the Srila Prabhupada himself. So that one can be recognized, or you can understand somebody by who they associate. Now, association means that you spend time, you engage in services together, etc. It's not like, you work together in a in a professional way. That's not real association. That's a professional work just to make money. But when you actually associate with each other, taking prasadam, hearing lectures, giving lectures, and going on Sankirtan and so forth, now you're associating with devotees. So what happens when you actually associate with devotees? Well, this verse says, a faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses is eligible to achieve such knowledge. And having achieved it, he quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. Well, what's the word for peace? Shanti, right? Everybody wants to have peace. Here's the formula. It's very simple. You have to subdue the senses. Then you become eligible to achieve knowledge. And having achieved knowledge, he quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. In other words, it's everlasting peace. It's not just temporary peace off and on. Some period of peace and another period of anxiety. This is like sustainable. That's what we should want. Not being afraid, not being, let's say, in confusion, and having peace of mind. So you can only have peace of mind if you avoid unnecessary sense gratification. Sense gratification for personal, let's say, uh, uh, personal, what you would call nonsense, where you try to enjoy the senses and avoid Krishna consciousness. That would be sense gratification that is detrimental. So just by taking a bath or hearing lectures, that's also sense gratification, but it's sense gratification connected to Krishna. But if you engage in sense gratification that ignores Krishna, just for your selfish, let's say, pleasure, that is considered sinful. And people usually, let's put it like this. It begins like nectar and it becomes like poison. Whereas Krishna consciousness, it begins by poison and later on it becomes nectar. So we should take up Krishna consciousness, and even though we're living in a poisonous atmosphere and mind, but by regular practice of Krishna consciousness, that poison will turn into nectar. But if we avoid poisonous, or if we avoid Krishna consciousness, then whatever whatever we're doing, it'll turn into poison. Poison means that you forget Krishna. So remembrance of Krishna is what will help us taste the nectar of Krishna consciousness. By always remembering the Lord, chanting the names of the Lord, engaging in devotion, service, and so forth. So this verse says, a faithful man. Faithful man is someone who regularly performs all the duties and principles of Krishna consciousness on a daily basis. A faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge. Well, in the schools, they don't teach transcendental knowledge. They teach mundane knowledge. But in temples, like our temple, we teach transcendental knowledge. Krishna. So a faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses, that means to control the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, and the skin. And you don't, so we have 9 holes in the body. So what you let into those 9 holes will determine who you are. So therefore, we should only let in Krishna consciousness, these 9 holes. You have 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, have a mouth, genitals, so forth. So you have 9 holes in the body. If you protect those 9 holes by only accepting Krishna consciousness, you become purified. But you can become easily contaminated by letting other things that are not Krishna conscious into those 9 holes. So, therefore, we have to have, let's say, protection of our mind and senses by always being engaged in Krishna consciousness. Then we don't become contaminated. The whole purpose of chanting Hare Krishna on a regular basis is to be purified on a regular basis. This purification by chanting the holy name is very powerful and absolutely necessary for being a devotee. So we should never fail in chanting 16, at least 16 good rounds of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra every day. Okay, so this verse in purport it says, what is called a faithful man who thinks that simply by acting in Krishna consciousness, he can attain the highest perfection. Simply by engaging in Krishna consciousness, one can attain the highest perfection of life. So that should be taught to our children at a very young age and taught again when they become teenagers and taught again when they become adults. Why? Well, because you don't want to have what's called a hiatus, a period in your life when you stop being interested in Krishna consciousness. So, okay, so from let's say first first grade to let's say 3rd grade, you're Krishna conscious. You have no choice. Parents are forcing you more or less. But you don't really feel, and at that age, you don't really feel like you're forced. You know? But as soon as you come in contact with going to school, watching television, having a cell phone, that is the worst thing to give a child, a cell phone. Okay? Now they can hear and see and connect with the good people or bad people, right? So that cell phone is a very dangerous, what you would call, uh, uh, it's a weapon of distraction. Once you get the cell phone, and by the way, it's not really healthy to always have a cell phone. It can, in some way or other, damage your brain by always having the cell phone, listening, talking, you know, sleeping with the cell phone. So these are what you would call weapons of mass destruction, distraction. Now, in ancient times, they didn't have cell phones, but everybody didn't die. They were not bored. They had, in fact, in one sense, they were living better than we live because they had peace of mind chanting Hare Krishna. So if you look at someone like Harivilas Thakur, he didn't have a cell phone. Did he have a cell phone? No. And but he was chanting all the time, and he achieved, you know. And by the way, he was a Muslim. He was not, you know, Hindu. He was a Muslim, but who took up Krishna consciousness. So, and he became the basically the representative of the holy name, because he was chanting every day and thousands of names of the Lord. And he was tested. He was tested twice, once by a young, very beautiful girl, and then by Maya herself came to test second time. So that's called the Acharya test. But he passed both tests. Why? Because he had no other desire than to please Krishna. And how did he please Krishna? He always chanted the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which are the names of Krishna. Is Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. Right? So this chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is the ticket to go back to Godhead. People buy tickets to go places, right? They get a ticket to go to India, here, ticket to go back to the spiritual world is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Now, in this verse, it says that one is called a faithful man who thinks that simply by acting in Krishna consciousness, he can attain the highest perfection. This faith, I'm not allergic to flowers. So it says, one is called a faithful man who thinks that simply by acting in Krishna consciousness, he can attain the highest perfection. This faith is attained by the discharge of devotional service and by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, which cleanses one's heart of all material dirt. Over and above this, one should control the senses. A person who is faithful to Krishna and who controls the senses can easily attain perfection in the knowledge of Krishna consciousness without delay. If we just understand this one verse and this purport, that'll give us the perfection of life. This is called real literature. Here it is so powerful. Just one little paragraph is enough to liberate you from the cycle of birth and death. That's real literature, right? There are other literature, you know, like you read the book, you know, Huckleberry Finn. Anybody ever read the book? Huckleberry. You ever read the book Huckleberry? No. It used to be recommended reading, but then they stopped it because I don't know why. Some reason or other they stopped. But Huckleberry Finn was very. All kids used to read that. Huh?
Because of racist language that stopped. Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, right?
Yeah. Well, they used a few curse words, but it was fun. It was a fun thing. Yeah. Anyway, there's so many books, and but actually, we concentrate on one book, Bhagavad Gita, and the expansion of Bhagavad Gita is Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's enough to keep us busy our whole life. If you never read any other book except Bhagavad Gita, and if you have the time and energy, Srimad Bhagavatam, you wouldn't need to read any other book. You have all knowledge. That's called real literature. It's not the junk literature. You know, you keep reading so many books, but you never really become Krishna conscious by reading all those books. But simply by reading even one verse and purport of Bhagavad Gita can make you Krishna conscious the rest of your life. And here's one verse today, chapter 4, verse number 39. It says, a faithful man who's dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues the senses is eligible to receive such knowledge. Okay, so being eligible, so in other words, this Krishna conscious knowledge is an open secret. It's actually secret knowledge. Not only secret, it's sacred knowledge also. But it's an open secret. And it is unique because it's transcendental. It's not mundane knowledge. Most people are just studying mundane knowledge their whole life, mundane books. You know, you go to the library, hundreds, thousands of books, you know, and people think, oh, the more books you read, the more you get educated. But actually, the more books you read, you know, when I say mundane books, the more you get contaminated, right? So, therefore, all you need is one book. It's called Bhagavad Gita, because that's Krishna speaking about himself to Arjuna. Therefore, and Bhagavad Gita is the oldest book in the history of the world. There's no other book. The Bible is like, you know, a recent, like it's a baby compared to the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, the last time it was spoken by Krishna Arjuna was 5,000 years ago, but the first time was millions of years ago when Krishna spoke it to Vivaswan, or the deity of the sun god, Devaswan. So therefore, being the oldest book in the history of the world, well, obviously it's profound. Otherwise, no one would be reading it. And when you pick up the Bhagavad Gita and read it, you're reading the oldest book in the history of the world. And almost every, let's say, verse of the Bhagavad Gita is profound. It gives us very deep understanding of our relationship with God or Krishna. So we're very fortunate to have the Bhagavad Gita. Now, other people, you know, they read the Quran, they read the Bible, and you know, I've read the Bible. I've read a little bit of the Quran, but it doesn't really compare to Bhagavad Gita. Now, why do I say that? Some people say, "Well, you're prejudiced because you're a Hare Krishna." That's what you say. But no, see, there are things missing in Quran and Bible. Like, for example, the Muslims have not learned yet to give up eating meat. In fact, there was this one Muslim guy who came to see me because his son had some kind of asthma or something, and somebody recommended him to come and see me because I might have some medicine or something. And I said, well, I said, the first thing to do is to not eat meat. He said, no, I will not do that. My son has to eat meat. So there was not, I mean, that was like the end of the discussion because he was adamant that his son has to eat meat. Why? Well, that means that, you know, in his mind, if his son didn't eat meat, he might be weak. He would not be able to, say, Allah Akbar when he's cutting somebody's throat. Right? So I don't know why. I mean, he was adamant about his son eating meat. So they haven't learned that. Is it in the Quran that you should not eat meat? Well, yeah, in one sense, you should not eat anything. In the Quran teaches not to eat anything that is haram. So they don't eat pigs, right? So they do have uh, principles of what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat. And but however, uh, they like to eat, meat, meat from cows. I mean, obviously Hindus, the good Hindus, not the nonsense. Uh, they they have a complete love and devotion for cows, and eating just the thought of eating a cow is like the worst thing you can do in life. It's because you would have to be a murderer to eat a cow, or supporting murderers because they have to kill the cow. The cow is a sacred animal. Krishna himself is a cowherd boy. Just imagine how much Krishna loves cows. He takes them out every day, doing it every day, even now. Takes them out to pasture, plays with them all day long, brings them back, and he protects them. So if someone says they're religious and part of their religion is eating cows, then you know that there's a big red flag. That means that they do not have bona fide roots. Even if it's what they call sacred, in the sense that, yeah, what do you, huh? Yeah, if it's halal, it's okay. It's not okay. It's nonsense. Okay, so uh, here we have there was one man, he was working in this company, and he had two friends in the company. One was a Muslim, one was a Hindu. So when there was Ramadan period, the Muslim talked to this man, and he said, "Oh, we had wonderful, uh, such wonderful celebration, and we killed so many cows, and it was just beautiful." And then there was a Hindu, and when it was like Hindu, uh, like uh, time when they're celebrating, and the Hindu said, "Oh, it was so wonderful. We uh, bathed the cow, and we uh, you know brushed the cow." Now, the man who was hearing this, right, he got confused because the Muslim is glorifying the killing of the cows and eating them, and the Hindu is glorifying protecting the cows and brushing. So people get confused. On one hand, the Muslims think it's spiritually enthusiastic to kill cows on Ramadan or whatever, and eat the meat. And the Hindus, I mean the good Hindus, not the nonsense Hindus, they think it's such a wonderful thing to protect the cow and brush the cow and protect the cow. So uh, this is confusing for people. Okay. So one thing is in one religion, killing cows is good. Other religion, it's forbidden. Seriously. So then we have to decide, you know, uh, what we believe, and this is important. because it's very easy to be misled and believe something that's not true or not bona fide. So therefore, real education is hearing Bhagavad Gita. Because Bhagavad Gita is a discussion between Arjuna, the quintessential disciple, and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nothing is better than that. There's no other book that compares to the Bhagavad Gita. Why? Because number one, there's no mistakes in Bhagavad Gita. There are mistakes in the Bible, there are mistakes in the Quran, but not Bhagavad Gita. So we should understand how sacred this book is. In fact, you can worship Bhagavad Gita every day. You can do arti to the Bhagavad Gita. That's how sacred it is. And I've always said to devotees, I said, when you're preaching in Muslim countries, you shouldn't have deities in your temple. You should worship Bhagavad Gita. Because that's what the Muslims do. They worship the Quran. Yeah. But when you worship deities and a whole bunch of deities, the Muslims eventually they'll kill you because it's forbidden in Islam to worship what they consider as an idol. So to avoid that, in Muslim countries where devotees have temples, they should worship Bhagavad Gita. Right? And you can even put the Quran next to the Bhagavad Gita. Worship both of them. Then the Muslims wouldn't have any problem with Hindus. But of course, they don't listen to what I say.
Does GBC recommend that?
No.
Because like Bangladesh, that was a problem now, right?
Of course, there's always going to be a problem. It's completely forbidden to worship deities in Islamic countries. Completely forbidden. That's why Muslims go crazy sometimes. They start massacring Hindus.
In Islam, they have these, I'm not forgetting what is the term called, but they have recommendations or instructions on how to survive in different countries. Like, if you are majority, then do this. If you are middle majority and not minority, then do this. If you are minority, then do this. So there is this strategy that has been laid out in Quran. But
They're smarter than us.
yeah. Subramanian Swami was actually mentioning about that. Fida or something like that. But in Hinduism, it's not. It's a very
That's why I'm saying the Hindus, if they worship Bhagavad Gita in Muslim countries, the Muslims wouldn't do it. Because that's what they do. They worship a book. And you can even worship the Bhagavad Gita with the Quran. That would be even better. The Muslims would love you if you did that. And Lord Chaitanya, when he had discussion with Chandkasi, Lord Chaitanya knew everything about the Quran. He was very cognizant of the Quran, and they had, as it says that they discussed Quran together, Lord Chaitanya and Chandkasi. But they don't write. I mean, I've never seen the discussion. It just says that they discussed Quran, and so we have to learn how to get along with people and understand when we're preaching in foreign countries, understand the culture of the people so that we don't make mistakes. I'll give you an example. When we were preaching in France, we had to translate, what we, do in English into French. So we translated the love feast into French. So in French, we wrote the fête d'amour. Amour means love in French, but when you say fête d'amour, the festival of love, in French, it's understood as an orgy. Oh, we didn't know that. We didn't know that. So when we started handing out, invitations, fête d'amour, right? We had ladies calling up, said, well, should I come with a bikini? I said, what? Bikini? You don't need a bikini. She said, oh, that's even better. I can come naked. And we were like confused. We didn't understand why they were saying that, because fête d'amour in French, it implies, having, sense gratification, which it says. So you see how you have to be careful with literal, what you would call translations, because they're different language. So what is something normal in one language could be something forbidden in another language. So we stopped advertising fête d'amour. Because we were getting phone calls, the ladies were saying, well, should I come in a bikini? And I was confused when they said that, but then someone explained to me, look, you guys don't know English. You don't know French. You know English, you don't know French. If you say fête d'amour, they're going to think that they're going to come and have sex. So you have to be very careful when you translate from one language to another language. So here, we're very fortunate because we have Prabhupada's translation of the Bhagavad Gita. And he said that that his translation of Bhagavad Gita and the scriptures are his spiritual ecstasy. That means he very carefully chooses each word in English, because he's translating Sanskrit to English. He has to very carefully, and he said he very carefully had to choose the words. And when there was no real equivalent, he had to make an equivalent, and he had to think about it very carefully. So today, in this verse, it says, a faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues his sense is eligible to achieve such knowledge. So in other words, to actually understand spiritual knowledge or Krishna conscious spiritual knowledge, you have to control the senses. Now, we have the mind, the intelligence, we have the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the skin. These are all senses. They're gross senses and subtle senses. And we have to control them all in order to what? To understand transcendental knowledge. So therefore, Prabhupada writes, such knowledge in Krishna consciousness can be achieved by a faithful person who believes firmly in Krishna. So if someone reads the Bhagavad Gita, they have to at least theoretically accept that Krishna is God. Otherwise, they won't be able to read it correctly. Even if, let's say, even if they don't believe in Krishna, but if they want to read Bhagavad Gita and understand it correctly, they'll have to theoretically accept that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Otherwise, they won't be able to read Bhagavad Gita correctly. Okay, so such knowledge in Krishna consciousness can be achieved by a faithful person who believes firmly in Krishna. One is called a faithful man who thinks that simply by acting in Krishna consciousness, he can attain the highest perfection. This faith is attained by discharge of devotional service and by chanting Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
So you have two things, both engaging in devotional service and chanting Hare. And by chanting Hare Krishna, it says, it cleanses the heart of all material dirt. Now, when you go to, let's say, the supermarket, you buy some soap, clean the body. But what is the soap to clean the mind? Right? The mind can be completely contaminated. What soap is there to clean the mind? They don't sell it in the Costco. You see a mind cleansing soap. It's not there. But the soap is there in Krishna consciousness. It's chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra on a regular basis every day. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
That's soap for the mind and the senses. It purifies everything. So the whole idea of spiritual life is purification. Purification of the mind and the senses, and by chanting the holy name to the Lord. Why is it by chanting? Why can't you say by silence? By silence. You go to a Mayavadi, let's say, temple, they have silent meditation. Have you ever been to a Mayavadi?
Bahai.
Yeah, you've been to.
I've seen it all. It's very lonely.
Yeah. Do they have silent meditation?
Yeah, it's everything silent.
Everything's silent. Yeah. So it's like being in a in the crematorium. You go in there, all the bodies are dead.
Only the Vipassana yoga also it's all silence.
Yeah.
They will not, they will not speak for 7 days.
7 or 10 days.
Huh? Yeah. Yeah.
But those are all like concocted version of yoga. Vipassana yoga, this yoga, that.
Well, it's called Mona.
Mona.
Right? Yeah. Where you don't speak.
Hmm.
That's for people who talk too much nonsense. So they have to do the Mona Vrat. But for people who speak Krishna consciousness, there's no Mona Vrat, because they're not talking nonsense. That's only for people who talk nonsense. Okay, so did Prabhupada do Mona Vrat? No, not at all. Does Krishna stay silent and doesn't say anything? No, he speaks. To the acharyas, they say, okay, now we'll have a class, silent meditation. Okay, yes.
No. After you're done, we'll start the kirtans.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Break the silence.
Yeah.
Silent.
Huh?
So the takeaway today from this class is, when one attains faith by discharging devotional service and by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare Hare. Hare
Ram.
Ram, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare.
This is one part of all material dirt. Then they develop strong faith. And by developing strong faith, you will never be cheated or misled, because you have complete faith. And even the Christians, they say, Jesus said it, I believe it, that's it. Jesus said it, I believe it, that's it. So we should say, Krishna said it, I believe it,
That's
it. Okay, so I don't want to say anything else. Are there any questions anyone would like to ask? There has to be one question at least. No question, no eat. That means you want to eat.
it.
So Does this mean that in order to surrender completely to Krishna, you need to know this knowledge, or only when you have this knowledge will you surrender to Krishna? Because it says such knowledge in Krishna consciousness can be achieved by faithful person who believes firmly in Krishna. But believing firmly in Krishna doesn't mean that completely surrendering to Krishna.
Well, if you don't believe in Krishna, then you're not going to surrender.
Yeah.
You have to have faith in Krishna to surrender. Like, for example, if you get what you would call a counterfeited $100 bill, would you accept it?
And if I don't know it's counterfeited, I'll just go ahead with
Well, no, you know it's
oh, then
counterfeit.
I'll not
Doesn't
accept.
Instead of having a picture of Lincoln or someone, you got a picture of
Like Monopoly dollars.
yeah. No, but instead of picture of Lincoln, it's a picture of Trump.
Trump used to sign the COVID checks. And
So would you accept that? No, you wouldn't accept it. It's not bona fide. It's nonsense. So we have to accept bona fide knowledge. Now, there's so much misleading knowledge in the world today. They call it knowledge, but it's actually not knowledge. It's nonsense. So you have to be very careful what you accept. It's just like you have to be careful what you eat, and you have to be careful what you hear, and you have to be careful what you say. So that means a devotee has to be vigilant throughout his life or her life, so that they are not misled. So we should only hear bona fide speakers. We should only hear bona fide knowledge. We should only see bona fide things and avoid unholy things. So it's not easy to have a spiritual life in Kali Yuga. Difficult because there's so many, let's say, distractions and so many what you would call, unclean things that are being seen and projected and so forth. So, therefore, associating with devotees is very important because if you associate with good devotees, you'll be a good devotee also. That's why we have, this is like what you would call satsanga. Sat means the truth, sangha means a collection of people to hear the truth. So the truth is today that one is called a faithful person who thinks that simply by acting in Krishna consciousness, devotional service, he or she can attain the highest perfection of life. This faith is attained by the discharge of devotional service and by chanting Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
So here is like two sentences in this very short purport. But if you understand those two sentences, that means that it'll be the perfection of your life. This is called real literature. There's so many books of literature, right? But this is real literature. In 2 lines, or 3 lines, the perfect understanding of who you are, who Krishna is, and understanding that simply by chanting Hare Krishna with faith, you'll have knowledge and you'll have love for Krishna and you'll be able to control your mind and your senses. That means with a few sentences, it solves the whole problem of how to be liberated in this material world. That means this is real knowledge. This is real literature. Yeah. They have all these books, these big, thick books, about doing this and doing that. But real literature, in a few lines, it solves all the problems of life. That's real literature. That's the only type of literature that we should read. We shouldn't read all these books, like Huckleberry Finn or this or that. You don't really learn anything about spiritual life by reading this. So therefore it says, one is called a faithful man who thinks that simply by acting in Krishna consciousness, he can attain the highest perfection of life. This faith is attained by the discharge of devotional service and by chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
cleanses one's heart of all material dirt. Over and above this, one should control the sense. A person who is faithful to Krishna and who controls the senses can easily attain perfection in the knowledge of Krishna consciousness without delay. You should write this down, put it in the kitchen. Every time you eat, you read it. See, it's just a few lines, but this is real literature. Just a few lines like this has all knowledge. That's real literature. It's not like, you have these big books, like Dostoevsky, huge books of literature, right? But it's all nonsense, right? Here, just a few lines gives you the ticket to go back to Godhead. That's real literature. And only a pure devotee like Prabhupada can write like this. Just in a few lines, it gives you everything you need to go back to Godhead. Okay, so I rest my case. Any question? Yes.
Krishna in real life.
We are seeing Krishna in real life. Yeah. The deity is real life. You're seeing the deity, right? That means you're seeing Krishna.
She was asking me, like, why we don't see Krishna like moving, talking, that kind of Krishna I want to see. How can we see him right now? Like interacting with him, that way. And you would also talk here.
You interact with him by hearing about him. So we go to the temple and we see the deity of Krishna. And then if you listen to the lecture, now you learn about Krishna, you say. And now Krishna becomes real in your mind. Just like you go to school, right? And in school, they teach you something, right? So you go to the temple, and if the temple is a good temple, there'll be class. And in the class, you hear about Krishna. Now you understand that Krishna actually exists and he's real. If you don't hear about Krishna, then you think it's just an idol. But if you hear about Krishna, then it becomes real. Then you understand, oh, Krishna is Supreme Personality Godhead. This is his, let's say, not statue, but his
Deity.
deity. And the deity is something real. It's right in front of you. And there are examples where the deity was walking and talking. You can read about that in the
Yeah.
pastimes of the Lord. He was walking and talking. There was one man that an old man and a young man. The young man took the old man on a parikram, and they went to see uh, very special deity of Krishna. And when they're together, they're seeing the deity of Krishna. The older man really thanked the younger man for bringing him to see Krishna. And he said, when we go back, I'm gonna give my daughter to you in marriage. So and he said it right in front of the deity. So the younger boy said, "Oh, don't say that. You're saying this in front of the deities. If something happens and you don't do it, it wouldn't be good for you." He said, "No, no, no. You're going to marry my daughter." So when they go back, and the man says to his sons that, our daughter is going to marry so and so, the sons disagree. And then the father gets, I actually was afraid, and he didn't know what to say. And then the person that he promised the marriage to his daughter, he insisted that the marriage take place. Why? Because not that he was greedy or anything like that. It's because the man promised in front of Krishna's deity that this boy would marry his daughter. And so that he would not be a liar, he insisted that that the marriage should take place. Why? Because if you make a statement in front of the deity and don't follow, it's a very, very bad thing to do. And you'll suffer for it. So we have to be like, what statements do we make in front of the deity? Well, when you get initiated in front of the deity, say, no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, and always chanting Hare Krishna Mantra when you get initiated. That's done in front of the deities and in front of all the devotees. And if you violate that, it's very, very serious violation. So we have to be very careful in our life. The vows that we take will define who we are. And if we break those vows, it's catastrophic and we'll suffer severely. It's like the vow of marriage. You get married and then you want to get a divorce. It's a very, very bad thing to do. And you'll suffer for doing that. And some people say, no, 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 I'm so happy I did it. No, but no, not really. You'll suffer because you made vows in front of God, right? You went to the church and you said, and you promised to stay together till death do us part. And now you want to get a divorce. That's like one of the worst things a person can do. So, vows define who we are. And if we follow or consider the vows that we make as sacred vows and we follow them, that means we're a real person. If we make a vow and we break it, we're not a real person. We're a charlatan. That's a good word, charlatan. Charlatan is someone who's a nonsense person. Yeah, a rational. Okay, any other questions? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. You got a question? No? You don't have a question? Okay. You have a question, Mother? No? Okay.
Can I ask one last one?
No. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So, in one of the, I have read about the Prabhupada comparing our, like how the snake saves its skin naturally. But when you try to pull the skin out of the snake, it doesn't happen that way. So, when you try to get rid of the senses, it's difficult. But when you follow the Krishna conscious path, naturally, this is a phenomenon happens that you don't have to really consciously try to control those senses, that it happens naturally. But when it is written, you have to subdue your senses. Like,
Where is it? Well, we read it here. Okay.
if you consciously try to control your senses, or Hare Krishna chanting itself also will lead it to that. Like, you don't have to really put an effort. It naturally happens.
If you chant sincerely, yeah.
Would also follow the regulative principles. The regulative principles help us to control the senses.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. But the association with devotees is very important. If you say, "Oh, I don't like the devotees, I just chant at home." There are people like that, and they'll have trouble sustaining their chanting. But the association of good devotees is the most important thing for making spiritual advancement, because you will chant Hare Krishna in the association of good devotees. Just like, let's say that there are a bunch of kids, and after class, they go out and they start talking nonsense. So if one kid doesn't want to speak nonsense, then he's like an island of one, because everybody else is speaking nonsense. You see. So to be a genuine devotee, you should talk about Krishna in the class, and you should talk about Krishna outside the class. So especially for young kids, it's not that as soon as you get out of the class, you go and start playing around and talking nonsense. That means that you're not actually serious about being Krishna conscious. We should always, whether we're in the temple or we're outside with our friends or whatever situation we're in, we should always be thinking and talking about Krishna. Then we are Krishna conscious. Any other questions?
Maharaj, I have a comment. So this time when I went to Vrindavan, I met a Brajvasi who was the taxi driver, and he was telling that Brajvasi believes that at least once in their lifetime, they are going to see Krishna in person. But then he was telling, because I don't know in what form the Krishna is going to appear, I have to treat everybody that can be Krishna. So I was just trying to, as you were telling that only thing is chanting, that only through the chanting and the heart purifies. Then only if the Krishna comes in any form, then only you see then only you know whether he is Krishna or not.
Well, let me give you an example. It's a real example. One time there was a festival going on. It's a very long time ago. And there was this man that was like a bridge bossy. He was dressed, dhoti and everything. And he was talking to me. And this a long time ago, when I was basically a new devotee, so I was, really I felt very, very happy to meet a bridge boss. It's the first time I had met someone that was actually born in India, in Vrindavan. And he was talking to me, and then some pretty girl walked by. And then for like a minute, he turned his head away from me. He kept talking to me, but he was looking at the girl as he was talking. And then all of a sudden, while he was talking, I had a banana in my hand while listening to him. And all of a sudden, he grabbed the banana, ran after the girl, and gave it to her. And then he came back. And I was upset. I said, "Why'd you take my banana?" Said, "Your guru has not taught you correctly." I said, "What does that have to do with my banana?" I want my banana back. No, you don't understand what is spiritual life. So I said, what do you mean I don't understand spiritual life? I was holding a banana, you take it out of my hand, and you went to this girl, to a pretty girl, you gave her my banana. He said, well, he said, you do not have the right eyes. That girl was Krishna. And when he said that, I realized, oh my God, this guy's real nonsense. Right? So he's trying to make me feel bad that, you know, I didn't see that that girl was Krishna. He wasn't Krishna, he's just an ordinary girl. And his taking the banana out of my hand and giving it to her is because he was attracted to her, right? So, but he was like a person who was born in Vrindavan and dressed like a devotee. Uh, but he had, you know, his eyes out to pretty girls. You know, obviously I never got my banana back. So, but you know, he tried to make me feel really bad. He said, no, you didn't see Krishna. He said, she was Krishna. You see, you know, hodgepodge nonsense that goes on in, you know, even in Vrindavan. Even in Vrindavan, there are people who smoke marijuana on the bank of the Ganga or the Yamuna. And there, I don't want to say it anymore, but there's all kinds of nonsense that takes place, even in Vrindavan. So we should be very careful not to be fooled, especially if you see these sadhus, you know, the big beards and everything, and they're smoking marijuana. They call it chalas, with the chilim, you know. And you know, somebody might think, oh, that's really good. You know. They're doing it, that must be the right thing to do. No, it's not. So even in Vrindavan, you'll see people who are so-called sadhus engaging in the illicit activities and doing it as if it's normal. You know? So therefore, without Prabhupada's instruction, we would be easily tricked by these false sadhus. Hare Krishna. Any other questions? Okay, then we
We'll
will.
do the kirtan.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
We discussed about the Krishna consciousness, and the truth is very subtle and very small. But when you see the number of books, the Bhagavatam controls, why do we need to have those many books to understand that?
I didn't quite understand your question.
So
Speak louder and slower.
we just discussed about the truth, like the Krishna truth, like chanting, surrendering to Krishna, Krishna consciousness.
Okay.
So, but the truth is very small, like very simple. Like, to surrender all the words. But when we have literature, right? So we have Bhagavad Gita, and then we have number of titles. So the Bhagavad.
Yeah.
So why do we need like such a large volume of books to understand such a small book?
Because it's not a small truth, it's a very big truth. It's the fundamental truth of all life. So the more you know about that fundamental truth, the more educated you are.
Yeah, but in the current context, so I mean, in the current context, in the modern world, right? You know, people don't have, I mean, patience to watch a given YouTube video or like we're talking about thoughts. How to make sure that this knowledge actually is consumable by the new generation?
Okay, well, look, in Vedic tradition, repetition is a principle because we have the tendency of, you know, in one ear, out the other ear, and forgetting things. So this the repetition is a normal thing, Krishna consciousness, to help us remember. Okay. So, but what is your question exactly?
But I mean, the book is small, but we have so much literature.
But the truth is not so small.
I mean, it's simple. I mean, if you see it on the face value, it looks very simple. So why not just keep on harping that versus elaborate literature of so many books and all? Is it required? It's like have
You don't have to read so many books. Just read Bhagavad Gita, one book. So, but if you understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Krishna has a transcendental body, and that Krishna is not a mundane person. Now, those are just few little points, but that's enough to help you become a devotee, right? But now, the life of a devotee, just imagine that the spiritual world is infinite. So there's infinite knowledge of Krishna's pastime. That means that you'll never get bored. If it was the same thing all the time, you'd say, oh my God, I'm bored, you know. But no, there's infinite knowledge about Krishna. You'll never end, you'll never come to the end of knowledge of Krishna. So that means you're excited. You're going to learn something new. Every time you sit, you hear lectures given by genuine devotees, there'll be something new. So you're excited by that. That's why Krishna has so many different pastimes. He has infinite pastimes. When a person is infinite, that means he's engaged or she is engaged in infinite transcendental pastimes. That means you'll never be bored. You'll always be excited by hearing new things that you never knew before. If there was just like, every time there's a class, you read that one statement over and over again, every class, you probably would stop coming to class. If every time you come to class, the speaker gives you one line, every time you come to class, would you come to class? You have to. See? But you just said, why don't you break one line like this? No, then you wouldn't come to class anymore. Yes.
I'm saying that even in the material world,
Yeah.
like in our different graves, we read about the laws of thermodynamics. The law
Laws
is
of what?
the law of thermodynamics. Like there are
Okay.
certain law of Newton.
Thermodynamics.
There is just one line which says this is the law. But then there are books and books, there are practical applications and how this is implemented in certain
All the
areas.
nuances.
So all the nuances need to be discussed because we have an inquisitive mind, and human mind starts talking about what happens if this thing happens or this thing, this thing.
When you're dealing with Krishna, you're dealing with everything that exists in life, right? So you can't just, you can, let's say, summarize it with one line, but that one line can be expanded into hundreds and thousands of books. That's how profound it is.
Probably said like, if you need to find everything, every person that you meet, the world will be very interesting.
Well, see, if you're gonna only speak Krishna in one time, you will get bored. But if everyone you see presence of Krishna in their heart, and you never get bored.
Yeah.
So Krishna is in the heart of all living entities.
And also work like whatever you do, like whatever things you do, see the present, like you will never be bored.
Well, that's because you've been taught to see properly. Krishna is in your own heart, and Krishna is in the heart of every living entity. Now, even if that person doesn't know that, but you know, therefore, you can try and help them to understand. See, what's good about the Kali Yuga, almost everyone you meet is not Krishna conscious. So for devotees, Kali Yuga is a great time. Because there's so many possibilities for preaching. If you were born in Satya Yuga, it'd be a little boring because everybody's a pure devotee. But in Kali Yuga, almost everybody is not a pure devotee. They're all nonsense. So it's a great opportunity for devotees to preach. It's unending preaching in Kali Yuga. So we're very fortunate to be in this age so that we can be preaching every day to devotees as well as non-devotees. That means that we have really understood what Krishna wants. He wants everybody to come back to God, not just a handful of people. He wants all living entities, because all those living entities came from Krishna. They're all the children of God. Therefore, we have to help all those errant children of God to come back to Krishna. That means that we have a lifetime of preaching. The Christians know this also. You have Christian ministers, their whole life they're preaching, their whole life. You'd say, well, that's enough, No, never enough, because in Kali Yuga, almost everybody is not doesn't believe in God. So therefore, it's a great time for preachers. You could be preaching every day of your life, and still you would not come to the end.
Muslims don't preach. I mean, we don't see preachers like Christian.
Oh, they did preach.
They do.
Muslim preachers are good. They can convince a person to strap a bomb on the body.
But it is only in the mosque. You have to go to the mosque when you do that. What I meant is like the way,
But I'm saying they're very good preachers.
Madrasa, yeah, madrasa too. Yeah, but you have to go. I mean, it's not like we
The
do.
madrasa. Yeah.
But like Christianity is like there are these teachers who will go door to door and do preaching.
And then TV channels and
Yeah, but I haven't seen like Muslims in Washington, Utah district, who do that. So there is one stall, but like.
They're doing it. They're doing it when you're not watching. That's why you meet someone, a nice person, or lunch, Krishna's nice thing, and 1 year later you meet him, and the guy's a Muslim. Muslims are very good preachers.
They're very well funded. I remember. So
They have started a club for bringing all the Muslims together.
Yeah.
Religious club.
because there is a loss to it.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? If not, then we'll go to the next.
Finally.
Any other questions? All right. Now,
the Kirtan, Maharaj.
now we're going to Kirtan. Harivilas.
Haribo. Want to lead one? You want somebody else?
Good. Okay, I'll lead. Okay. Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.